Quadrupedal leg lift progressions. The quadrupedal leg lift is a hip abduction exercise that allows us to improve the active range of motion in hip abduction. I like to use this movement as an assistance movement for improving the range of motion in movements such as the gymnastics middle splits and the gymnastics pancake. In this video, I want to introduce 3 levels of progressions that you can use for the quadrupedal leg lift. In each progression, we're going to start to extend the lever length and challenge the hip abduction a little bit more. So in level 1, we start in the kneeling quadrupedal position with the hands stacked directly under the shoulders and the elbows locked, and the knees bent and stacked directly under the hips. The goal in all 3 levels is to try to keep the pelvis level as we lift the leg out to the side. So try to limit any rotation, because this will give us a false perception of our hip abduction ability. So from this kneeling position, we're going to keep the knee bent and we're going to abduct the hip by contracting the glute and lifting the knee out to the side. We lift it as high as we can without rotating the pelvis, and we hold the top position for the prescribed amount of time. We then lower the knee back down to the floor, rest as needed between repetitions, and perform the prescribed number of repetitions on one side before switching to the other side. As we lift the knee out to the side, we want to keep the knee tracking in a horizontal alignment with the opposite knee. So be careful not to start to extend the hip as you lift the leg. As you progress to level 2, the movement is going to stay pretty much the same, with the exception of straightening the leg in the topmost position for the isometric hold and keeping it straight for the eccentric phase. So again, we start in the quadrupedal position with the hands stacked directly under the shoulders and the elbows locked. The knees are bent, and we're focusing on keeping the pelvis level as we abduct the hip. So with the bent knee, we abduct the hip by contracting the glute and lifting the knee as high as we can. When we get to that topmost position, we will extend the knee, straighten the leg, and point the toe. We'll hold the topmost position for the isometric hold with a straight leg, and then we'll slowly lower the foot to the floor. We bend the knee and return to the quadrupedal position. Straightening the leg at the top of the movement is going to lengthen the lever and make the movement harder, so therefore the glute is going to work harder to keep the leg lifted. Be mindful that you do not rotate the pelvis in this position. Perform the specified number of reps on one side and then switch and repeat on the opposite side. Level 3 is to keep the leg straight. So through the concentric phase, the isometric phase, and the eccentric phase. So again, we start in a quadrupedal position with the hands stacked directly under the shoulders, the elbows locked, and then we're going to extend one leg out to the side. Again, the focus is on trying to keep the pelvis level and minimizing any rotation as we lift the leg. The leg needs to be in line with the knee that's on the floor, so make sure you're not extending the hip and the foot is not behind the body. You're really trying to close that angle, or you've got a 90-degree angle out to the side. So again, we contract the glute, we lift the leg as high as we can, we hold the isometric with a straight leg, and then we lower the leg back to the floor. We perform the specified number of repetitions on one side, then we switch to the other side. As a little bonus for those still watching, when performing the quadrupedal leg lifts, you also want to be conscious of the hip adductors, the inner thigh muscles. If they are short and tight, they are going to limit the range of motion in hip abduction. So you might consider supersetting this exercise with a hip adductor stretch. Something like a tailor pose or a standing middle splits would be a good option. If you can lengthen the hip adductors, you're going to get a better range of motion in hip abduction. With the levels of progression, take your time. You want to be choosing a level that allows you to feel a good sensation of the glute contraction allows you to lift the leg out to the side with minimum pelvic rotation, okay? For me, I feel that level 2 is probably a good progression for where I am right now. I find that the straight leg one, I really have to focus hard and I can't lift the leg as high. Whereas with the bent knee, then straight leg, I feel I'm reaching a better range of motion and working the glute to a higher level of contraction than with the straight leg. So explore the movements, play with them, find what works best for you. And don't see them as a level of progression in terms of I have to get to level 3. See them as different exercises and you finding which level gives you the best sensation of glute contraction and hip abduction.